Hey guys, so today we're going to be doing another problem with arrays. In the previous video we had a really simple one of swapping the first and last elements, but this one is going to be a little more complex with loops. So let's head on over to coding that, and this time we're going to go to array 2. And I want to do is everywhere. Alright, so we'll say that a value is everywhere in an array if for every pair of adjacent elements in the array, at least one of the pair is that value. Return true if the given value is everywhere in the array. Alright, so let's look at this example, right? Here the array is 1, 2, 1, 3, and we're checking if the value 1 is everywhere in the array. So here the first pair is 1 and 2, and one of them has a value of 1, so that's true. So far we're good. Then 2 and 1, that also has a value of 1, so we're good there. 1 and 3, that pair also has a 1, so this is going to return true. Versus here, we're looking at that same array, but we're now looking for the value 2. So the first pair, 1 and 2, okay, so far it's true. 2 and 1, that also has a value of 2, so we're true. But 1 and 3, oh, none of them have a value of true, so it's actually going to be false. Awesome, so now we kind of have an idea for what the program is asking for. So remember that the array we're working with is up here. We're working with nums, and the value we're looking for is stored in the variable val. So the first thing I want to do is we have to return a Boolean value, right? We want to give back a Boolean value. So I'm going to have a Boolean variable, and I'll just call it isEverywhere. And that's the value we're going to be giving. And remember that when you create a variable, you always want to give it some kind of base value, either like 0 or 0.0, or like in a Boolean, you want to sometimes give it a false. But in this case, the approach I'm taking is I'm going to assume that it's true. And as I'm iterating through the array, if I find a pair, like in the second example, where the value is not there, then I'll give it a value of false. So I'm going to give my variable a base value of true. Cool, so in order to go through the whole array and check each pair, I have to use a for loop. So we're going to do for int I equals 0, I is less than nums.length, I++, and we'll have our code in there. Now, in order to check each pair, we have to look at whatever value we're at on the position I, right? Like remember that I is like the position. So I starts at 0, so we're starting at the first position, and then I will become 1, so we're going to the second position. Like that, I is our main thing that we're using to look at each value in the array. But in this case, I'm not looking at just one value in the array, I'm comparing two values in the array. So I'm either going to be looking at either I, the position I, and the one before it, or the value after it, right? When I'm looking through my array, I can either start at the first element and check the second one and check that pair, or I can start at the second element, check the one before it, and check that pair, right? So in order to do that, I can't start at 0 and go all the way to the last element, right? Because if I try to do that, if I try to do, let's say I minus 1, then it'll give you an index out of bounds exception, right? Because I at the first iteration is 0, and 0 minus 1 is negative, and there's no negative position in an array. So I have to either start at the first element and go all the way to the one before the last element, so that I'm not checking an extra one that doesn't exist. Or I have to start at the second element, so that I'm checking the one before, and go all the way to the last element in the array. So that means we have to change our for loop a little bit. So I'm actually going to go all the way till the second to last element. So I'm going to be checking whatever I position I'm at and plus 1. Okay, so now we have to have our condition, right? So we're seeing if in a pair, either one of the elements has a value of val, which is specified at the top. So I'm going to use an if statement. I'm going to say if nums.I equals val, or nums at I plus 1 equals val, then I'm going to give my value, my variable, a value of either true or false, right? But remember that the approach I'm taking here is I'm assuming that it's true. I've given my variable a base value of true. And if I find a pair where my value is not there, then I want to give it a false, right? So in this case, I'm going to use the not operator we talked about. So notice how I put parentheses around it. Basically, what's going to happen is it's going to evaluate this expression. It's going to check, okay, is the position I'm at, the element I'm at, and the element after, do either of them have a value of val? Okay, so that'll either give you a true or false. And then putting the not on it switches it, because I want that if it's not there, right, if this condition is false, then I want to give my Boolean variable a value of false. So putting that not means that this if statement will be true if I have a pair like here. 1 and 3, it doesn't have the value 2 in it, right? This condition is going to be false. But then I put the not in front of it. So it'll actually become true. So that means that it'll enter the if block if none of the two values in the pair have the value we're looking for. So in that case, I'll give my variable a value of false. And then remember that we want to return the value, right? So when we run this, it'll be correct. Now, alternatively, you didn't have to necessarily use the not. You could have a different condition in there that could also work. Obviously, there's multiple ways to solving a program. This is the approach I took. Awesome, so we just solved a great problem with arrays and loops and if statements. I'll see you guys in the next video.